so today we're gonna be reading Monster My Friends Creepypasta X Beast Listener up in here. So we are currently in chapter 14, but we're gonna go backwards a little for a little bit of recap so we can kind of understand where we're at. So basically, if you guys don't remember, we finally met Ben and Jeff. So Jeff, obviously in the story, has very fucking poor hygiene, and he's just the bare minimum of disgusting. He's disgusting. All right. So basically, we end up finding out that Ben got stabbed by him. He needed help by Jack. Later on, they talked and more talked. They ended up getting called by Hoodie and explaining them that they needed to meet at a certain location. Ben and Jeff started to leave, and he was like, and Jack was like, "Hey, you can't leave me behind." And then they're like, "I wish you luck." He did not know the way. He did not know the way. So they left, and then we were like, "Oh no, what the fuck should I do?" So we were about to leave until Jack was like, "I got an idea." And then he started tempting us with food, which eventually it worked. So he ended up giving us the food, making the deal with us to go with him and ride our back, or etc., right? So after that, he told us to stay there. He went to go get some supplies because he's a doctor in the creepypasta area, right? So after that, he comes back outside, puts his shit on our back, and he tries to get on our back, and he's like, he insulted us, bro, straight up insulted us, and be like, literally straight up, watch this. How am I gonna do this? Seed Eater wasn't as fat, so there was less to crawl over. How dare you? First of all, yes, how dare you? It's the audacity for me. It's just the audacity. Like, excuse me? Me? Boy, I would have just been like, excuse me? And just straight up just pretended I was about to leave. And then, no. The steel broken. How dare you? No, I would have been mad. Anyways. Hello guys, so a few warnings before you get really straight into it. So first, there will be mentions of blood, violence, and I think maybe some gunshot noises and all that, because I know some people just do not like those noises. Understandable. But yeah, just this is creepypasta, so as you guys know, y'all should expect some violence to happen. This is creepypasta after all. Anything that mentions creepypasta most likely will end in violence, very deep violence. So yeah, prepare yourselves. Remember, blood, gore, and death will be mentioned. Violence, pretty much. It is creepypasta after all, right? Anyways, y'all have been warned. Now we are back officially back at chapter 14. And end of recap, by the way. Chapter 14. Jack sat awkwardly atop my back, his legs hugging my torso tightly while his hands clenched fistfuls of my hair. He had a hard time getting up, and after his comment, I refrained from assisting him. That is, until he could not get a hold and rolled over to the other side of my body. I did lower myself close to the ground, just a little. Finally, you're not an easy beast to mount. Jack wiped the sweat from his brow, catching his breath from the lengthy struggle. Alright, now we just need to get to the park. I hope he is not praying I'll be genius enough to know where I'm going. I know where the town is, but I don't have any idea if it has a park in the area. He squeezed his thighs against me, tugging on the hair around my shoulders. Is he nervous? I suppose being blind and unable to feel the ground below your feet can be nerve-wracking. How do I... Could you just please just... He kicked his legs, tugging the hair harder in frustration. Surprisingly, I barely felt the pull, despite the harshness. He wants me to move. I should have guessed. Standing back up, Jack wobbled slightly, clenching his bag of supplies. He sounded surprised from the sudden action, but ushered me onward with a few annoying kicks. It's times like this I wish I could talk. Like, excuse me, sir, but you may cease your kicking. I damn may throw you off. Bro, I would have thrown him a long time ago. Regardless, I returned to the trail, following the beaten path previously used. The forest is eerily quiet. No crickets or small rodents. The wind eerily barely blew. Jack also seemed to notice a change. He tugged on the hair, pulling the tension left like a joystick. Be best to hurry, fuzzball. I don't want to be late. I snorted at him. This whole situation is putting me on edge. I'll take him to the park, buck him off, and scuttle back to my cozy home in the trees. Jack lifted the bottom of his mask and sucked in a strong breath. He coughed and sneezed, holding his mask tightly against his face. Yep, that's Jeff all right. As disgusting as always. Curiously, I followed suit, taking a deep breath, only to choke on the toxic fumes. Jack chuckled, patting on my back. Just follow the hellish smell, right? I may be home sooner than I thought. The smell is pungent enough that I'm not worried about its dissipating. Though it did lead us along a tight embankment that I carefully maneuvered around out of fear or rolling down the hill. Jack suddenly jerked forward, tugging my hair back. He peered around, sniffing the air. Once more, I did the same. A stale, wooden smog had my eyes widened. Panic spread through my body. Something was on fire. The large, bright glow in the distance was gaining quick. Had we been downwind, we may have noticed it sooner. Now it was almost on top of us. Jack harshly kicked my ribs. With little time to be irritated, my legs bounded forward. The pine needles and twigs tickled the bottom of my feet. The fallen trunks threatened to trip me and feed my flesh to the closing flames. I've read plenty about how destructive a forest fire can be. It's fast, unrelenting, but not unstable. There, across the river around here. We have to cross the river. Jack's breath was heavy. The smoke had already started enveloping the clean air. Surprisingly, it did not bother me, allowing my body to continue working its hardest to relieve myself of the intense heat. Leaping over another fallen tree, the river Jack had mentioned came into my sight. The current rushed powerfully with the addition of spring melt, but it was shallow, only risking above my haunches. The cold water licked the bottom of my belly, a welcome contrast in compared to the heat. I did not slow my pace once my claws touched the rocky shore, sprinting forward as Jack tried to cough up the smoke in his lungs. That was until a snarl slid around slid under my left wrist, tugging my body to a sudden and abrupt stop, flipping my legs back over my head and landing painfully onto my back, while Jack launched forward and tumbled into the damp forest floor. Jack came to his senses quicker than I could, standing to his feet and arming himself with a switchable tool stowed in his pouch. He coughed and dabbled over, supporting himself with his hands. The eyeless Jack. I thought I lost you. How lucky my week has been. A shaded figure crept out of the bushes. A sawed-off shotgun laid over his shoulder. The old man. No, he can kiss my nonchalant afro. Chapter 15. The momentum of my tumble sucked the air from my lungs. My vision wobbled, and my ears buzzed. The suddenness of the flip stunned my body in a state of shock. The tips of my limbs numbed with surprise. Fortunately, I did not seem to be the center of attention for the moment. The old man glared at Jack with seething hatred. The barrel of his gun aimed firmly at Jack, his fingers twitching along the grip, debating internally on pulling the trigger. Jack sat uncomfortably on his haunches. His already damaged mask had been forcibly removed during the fall, developing his already matted brunette hair. His eyeless, void-filled sock squinted at the armed man before him, analyzing the situation. The scalpel firmly gripped between his fingers glinted, outmatched only by Jack's razor-white snarl. Jack was mad. Jack was pissed. He had re-encountered the same man who had hunted and shot him not for 4 hours before. His expression seemed to amuse the old man, fixing a snarky grin on his face. What are you mad? Humiliated? His voice shook, cracking between his sentences. His eyes glazed over as his grin fell into a frown. You don't get to feel, you monster. Good night. Tonight, I'll take revenge for my daughter, you murderer. I stilled where I lay. His words had my full attention. Not that I was surprised by the accusation of Jack doing something to a kid. He is acquainted with Jeff the Killer, after all, and that marks him as a murderer, or a companion. I was taken aback by this man's violently Vigilantly? Mindset. I can respect that, but not understand it. I had never felt close enough to another to care for their fate. Jack scoffed, breathing heavy through a few chuckles. Sorry to disappoint you, asshole. I don't go out of my way to kill kids. Bullshit. She would talk about you all the time. Jack and I played princess today. Jack taught me a new nursery rhyme. Jack, Jack, Jack. And that's you. The old man grips tightened around his gun. Anger and sadness filled his eyes. Jack stood to his feet, holding his abdomen with his unmarred hand, a sarcastic laugh as he shook his dusted-covered body. As I've said, I don't care for killing kids. Not enough meat on them to be worth going after. I'm a killer of necessity. You think I'll waste my time hunting something that could not fill me? Who then? The old man is getting desperate. The barrel of his weapon no longer faced Jack as he swung his arms hysterically. The knowing look on Jack's face, the somber glint of his teeth. Everything is playing out like a script, a novel. I can't tear my eyes away. The dizziness in my head had already subsided. The feeling returned to my limbs. The snare still being held tight around my ankle. But easy enough to pull loose and free. It would be best for me to make an inconspicuous exit, but the drama of the event before me has nailed me down. It is intriguing. I have read plenty of murder mysteries about witnessing the climax before my eyes brought a sense of rejuvenation. Jack licked his lip of blood and tar, stalling out the answer with a long inhale, keeping the old man on his toes. Do you really think? His sockets shone with mischief. I'm the only Jack? I could not hold an involuntary squeal. The scene before me is like a remake of one of my favorite historical events, and the drama had me drooling. The loud shrill noise reminded the two of my presence. The old man's eyes glazed over momentarily. His shock disrupted and replaced with fury. Not fury, fury. His momentarily distraction had left him opened, and Jack did not miss his chance. The swing of his blade was swift. The air around him whistled as he lunged. Had I been in the man's place, I would be dead before I hit the ground. But the old man managed to evade the strike with a moderate slice to the throat. Jack coughed once more, spitting the content in his mouth to the ground. Military? Marine, perhaps? I see why you're so confident. The old man growled in frustration, aiming the shotgun at his opponent. The detonation vibrated the air. The frequency of the explosion itself would be enough to momentarily stun an individual. Jack, however, was having none of it, kicking the barrel high in the air with the flexibility of an Olympic gymnast. The young man tumbled backwards, managing to keep a hold of his weapon. I had been too intrigued and mesmerized with the battle, I foolishly grew comfortable, only returning to reality when the old man's body flew before me. We got to our feet at the same time. The sudden feeling of involvement squeezed my chest. The metal of the twin muzzles pressed against my mask. Don't you move, Violet, or I'll take another pet from you. Oh shit, it's getting good! It's getting good. Chapter 16. The air stood still. I honestly think this may be a bad situation I've intervened in. A new air of hostility surrounded Jack. The shadows covered his face in an eerie black mask. His face clenched tight as he clawed his fingers into his palm. What did you do to Seed Eater? The old man held himself upright, firmly pressing the bore of his shotgun against the nose of my mask, expressionlessly glaring Jack down, deeming him far more of a threat than the monster by his side. Sweat beading down his chin. He did not answer Jack's question, instead demanding Jack to disarm himself with a quick jerk of his head. I'm at loss of what to do in the situation. Jack has no intentions of giving himself up for a beast he had encountered only later today, even if I had assisted him once against this man before. My thoughts run true as Jack took a step forward, scalpel positioned before himself and ready to swipe when in range. His expression dark and determined. He threw a quick acceptant glance at me, so subtle and clouded by shadow, I thought it may have been a trick of the moon. My breath held in my lungs. Heartbeat quickened. Hundreds of scenarios ran through my head, though not touching my flesh directly, the cold steel of the bore seemed to burn me. The old man's finger twitching for the trigger just out of my peripheral looked strangely bright. Am I going to die? Again? Am I just going to sit here? No. I'm overthinking things. I took a deep breath. A strange calmness relaxed my body, melting the tension from my muscles, my mind clearing away of any imposing thoughts. He has a shotgun, powerful, but meant for close range. It is only capable of holding 2 slugs in its chamber. He had already used one. The best way to have him run dry is simply to move. The muscles in my hind legs tensed once more, propelling my massive body high in the branches above. The action so nimble, not a leaf followed my path. The thunderous echo of the fired weapon bounced across the surrounding trees, the dirt propelled high by the force of the blast, leaving burnt residue on the forest floor where I once stood. The old man instantly knew his mistake, tripping over his own legs while trying to put distance between himself and Jack, who quickened his approach. He desperately pulled out the content of his pockets, sending stray slugs and garbage into the leaves. Before he could reload, Jack was already on top of him, pinning the man to the ground with the heel of his foot. The old man yelled obscenities, cussing to the night with no real meaning to his words. Clumsily sliding down the trunk of the tree, I stood away from the two. I was not risking being dragged in again, and if the old man manages to struggle free, I don't think he will be getting away with the force Jack is putting into the leg pressed up against the man's chest. Excuse me. I may also still be pissed about the whole scenario from the cabin to this point in time, despite having the opportunity to watch the drama. I asked you where it is! Jack's voice rippled up my back, depth almost a growl. He had tossed his fine scalpel aside in favor of his fingernails, already covered in the man's blood from dragging them down his face, his expression animalistic. His lips pulled back in a snarl, baring his jagged pearly whites for the man to see. I already sold that beast long ago. Give up and suffer with the loss. No eyes. The old man spat a glob of blood into Jack's trousers, smirking half-heartedly. He seemed to accept whatever fate awaited him, despite the flicker of flame still lit in his eyes. Damn prick. Fine. How about I feed you to my friend here? I bet all that running has left it famished. Jack glances over his shoulder, a devilish smirk on his lips. Come here, fuzzball. Hesitantly, I do as told, approaching the man on the ground. This guy has ruined my mood and is well deserving of a scolding, but by no means I believe I'm able to harm a person. Don't get me wrong. If Jack had racked his fingers into the man's flesh, I would turn away and listen to his inside being torn out. But for me to do that myself is impossible. I have no desire to eat a human being. Maybe I can fake it? Kick him around a little or send him home naked? I don't think that's the situation. Jack catches my hesitation. You were fine with eating it before. Maybe you're a scavenger? Regardless, it will take too long to cut him up here. The old man rested still on the cold ground, his eyes shut. Jack mulled over his options, thinking out loud of the best way to not waste a meal. A shimmering object poked out of the old man's pocket, catching my eyes with its entrancing sparkle. Without much thought, my face itched closer to the man's chest, retrieving the silver item between my jaws. A loud crack ran through the forest once more. An impact struck my shoulder. I cushioned heavily by the fur coating my body. I looked around confused. A squashed ball of lead lay by my talons. Smoke radiating off the metal of the dispensing into the air. Jack swiftly sat himself on my back, using the grounded man as a stool to hoist himself up, his expression fallen and angry. They have us surrounded. Run, Fuzzball, go! Oh, goodness. Chapter 17. Still confused, but urged by Jack's hard kicks, I sprinted forward in the direction I originally intended to follow, leaving the old man where he laid. I cannot sense anyone around the vicinity. I don't understand what Jack is referring to when he said we were surrounded. This storyline just gets more confusing the further I'm included. I firmly held the shiny pendant in my beak. An urge to not let it fall consumed me. It proved difficult to not swallow the object as I ran, instructed firmly by Jack's frantic tugging. Okay, I can't hear them anymore. Slow down, would you? I have to make a call and don't want to be flung off, you know? Jack shuffled his hand around the pocket of his hood, pulling out a cell phone and smothering an orangey red gelatinous substance. He rubbed the sticky green screen against the front of his hoodie, apparently unbothered by the state of his device. Hey Siri, call Ben. The device dialed. Ben answered instantly, not giving the phone a chance to ring. Dude, where the hell are you? Slender is getting impatient. I know. Jack rubbed the bridge of his nose, his body frozen. My mask! I forgot. He growled, the snarl returning to his face. I ran into some trouble. I'll explain when I get there. Give me some directions or get your ass over here and show me. Ben gagged. No way in hell am I climbing through your nasty ass phone. You don't need me anyways. Slender already sent Masky after you, so hang tight. The call dropped. Jack sat silent. I stopped walking. When Mask started panicking about his mask, listening in on the conversation, if I remember correctly, Masky is that guy who returned Sally home. The man in the white mask. I think I remember that he smelled like cigarettes, blood, and maybe a little chloroform, and a lot of dirt. The night blew a faint molecule of that scent. I returned to walking, following my nose up and wind and off the path I had followed. Where are you going now? Hang tight, you furry-legged marble. Jack tugged on my hair, insisting I stay where I am. I ignored his tugging, driven by the thought of finally completing my assignment and returning home to sleep. Jack, what is... Masky saw a large fallen log a few yards from where we made it to the call. A flashlight and a paper map in hand. Jack straightened himself, his facial expressions becoming neutral. Masky, come to pick me up, I see. Got a little lost on my way over. And this is where you ended up. Glad you made it out of that fire. Can't afford to lose our doctor. Jack jumped from the log, pocketing his utilities. As he approached, less hesitant in his posture than you first meeting him. I see you made a friend. So it would seem. The new feeling Jack gave off startled me. His attitude was now detached and hard to read. Masky didn't show any sign of caring for the attitude, putting out his hand for Jack to take a hold of. A grin lifted my mask. When Jack's feet touched the ground, I'll bolt out of here. I can make my way home eventually. Getting out of this situation is my priority. Unfortunately, that idea crumbled when more weight added to my back. My body stiffened. Okay, how the fuck do I drive this thing? Masky was now sat before Jack, his gloved hands firmly grasping my shoulders. Jack held awkwardly onto my back, his posture disagreeable. Just let me do it. He can tell me where we're going. This will be faster. Just tell me how to start this thing. It's not a motor vehicle. It's a breathing entity. Just ride it like you would a horse. Do I look like the kind of guy who would ride a horse? Would you just, oh my god. Just tell me the directions. I'll walk there myself, you fucking pikers. My legs hurt. I have been doing a lot of running this week, and I cannot stand. Reluctantly, I give in to the situation, keeping a strong hold on my common sense as the two bantered back and forth, their conversation non-hostile but obviously meant to be passive-aggressive. I had made a mental note on Masky's horrible steering skills. I had listened to his demands during the hike I had collided into dozens of trees and fallen into an embankment into the river. Thankfully, I was able to grasp the intention of the path he wanted and stumbled upon the park with little excitement along the way. The number of figures residing in the park was greater than it should have been at this time of night. That left me skeptical of my situation once more. Then, I saw him. That tall, faceless being dressed in black. Chapter 18. Fuck. Nope. I'm not going through any more shit today. The Slenderman is far out of my league to interact with. I tried to back away unnoticed, but the number of eyes in the vicinity, someone was bound to see us. Pom-pom! I paused, directing my attention to Sally's small figure that clung tightly to the tall entity's shoulder. He glanced over from her to me, his faceless gaze holding my body in place. He placed her down gently, allowing her light pink dress shoes to connect with the earth before releasing his hold. He watched intently as she rushed to my side, throwing her body as weight at my chest. The boys slid off my back, approaching the tall being with no hesitation. Jack placed his bag on the ground, his look sullen. Sorry for the hold-up. Got caught in an ambush. The The creature's voice radiated like static, every wave of authority. This creature is far more scarier up close compared to a civil look from the pond, across the pond. Jack nodded, returning to my side, and resting his elbow atop my head. The fuzzball here assisted in my escape twice today. It has intelligence, and seems to have prior training, but it's slow and fat. Whoever owns this is not taking good care of it. Pop-Pop is not fat, he is fluffy! Sally huffed out, puffing her cheek, Sally puffed out her cheeks, glaring Jack down as she clung tighter to my side. Did you say it's a he? But how do you know that? Did you ask it? Jack was now glaring back, shifting closer to my body, his voice mocking and childish. He most likely didn't mean anything by it, but his lips pulled upward, bearing his teeth down at the little girl who took no notice. You're not very smart, Jack. Pop-Pom can't talk. He has to be a boy, because he's clumsy. Ouch. That hurt my pride a lot more than I thought it would. My head dropped, offended for far more than one reason. A strange whine opened my mouth enough for the trinkle to fall out, clattering together as it hit the ground. The Slender Man took notice. He wordlessly commanded Masky to retrieve the shiny object. My heart broke a little, knowing I'm not going to be able to get it back. Jack handed the object over, standing by the man's side with his hands behind his back. Jack and Sally had quieted down, looking up at Slender in interest. Jack spoke. That belonged to the guy who jumped me. Fuzzball must have taken it when I was not looking. Birds like shiny objects, I suppose. The Slender Man gave the pendant back to Masky.
He was one of the members of the newly formed group. The other reason I've gathered you all here.
He motioned the odd group of figures conversing with one another, obviously annoyed about the call-out. The Slenderman re-enjoyed the crowd. A quick shock of static silenced the chatter. He looked over the group, his posture straightened and his hands neatly behind his back.
I thank you all for joining us tonight, despite having to cancel your plans. I wanted to inform you all of a newly developed vigilante in town. They are small and slow-witted, but it would be in your best interest to remove the group before it gets out of hand. If anyone of you notices a member missing, please take care of them or inform my proxies of their whereabouts.
Jack put his hand in the air, gaining the tall man's attention.
Ah, yes. Alice Jack has also recently misplaced his pet, Seed Eater. If any of you happen upon it, he has prepared a reward. That is all. You may return.
Some individuals gowned loudly. Others raced off without looking back. A few, however, stayed behind to loiter. For the moment, I had been left alone. Once again, I tried to sneak away. Hoodie, however, had other plans. Seeming to pop out of thin air and run his hands through my hair, intently feeling the texture. He mumbled to himself. He sighed, staring at my mask, and asked if I would answer a question. What are you?
A good question.
Hoodie straightened. I froze in place. The Slenderman stood a few feet away, looking at me with great interest. Hoodie relaxed, pocketing his hand. Not even you know, sir?
I do not. I've seen many like it, but nothing like exact.
The Slenderman scratched his pale chin with a bony finger.
Perhaps I shall conduct an experiment. It has been some time since I've met an entity I could not place. This should bring back some memories.
He reached a hand out for me, but that was retracted as a knife flew past. We both looked in the direction that the object had flown from. Slenderman huffed in irritation when he noticed Jack sitting ideal on the bottom of a slide. Jack glanced up, his smile stretched. What makes you think you could just take things, Slendy? Maybe I want to have it. Did I just get saved by Jeff the Killer? The Slenderman rubbed his temple.
Dare I ask what you want to do with it?
Jeff stood, knife at the ready. Eat it, obviously. The four of us sat silent. Just imagine we just run away. A cold breeze blew into my open mouth. Hoodie gripped his head in astonishment. You've got to be kidding me. Jeff laughs heatedly, pointing the tip of his knife in my direction. That thing is probably the biggest fucking chicken in existence. No way in hell am I gonna pass that up. Slenderman and I remained silent. I was starting to contemplate just giving myself up for the experiment. I can feel the stress of the weight of the day weighing on me. Tears pricked the corner of my eyes.
Hoodie.
Said man, looking up at the tall being expectantly. Slender's slim fingers directed at Jeff.
Get him.
Hoodie charged Jeff without thought, brandishing a wrench from his pocket. Said weapon sparked as it connected Jeff's chicken kitchen knife with a loud metallic twang. I did not hold my place as the two brawled. Slender was far taken by the actions of the two to notice me hightail out of the vicinity, or he had not expected a creature such as I to bolt under his watch. Either way, I was wounded up in the vacant street corner, huffing and puffing from the excessive strain on my body. I foolishly ran into the heart of town without thinking. Oh my god, the sun's about to rise. Oh my god. That's not fucking great. Okay, and then this is just the author back then. This is already a completed book, so it's kind of an old note. And it just mentions that they just kind of changed it a little bit, but not too much, but it's alright. It's alright. It's still pretty damn good. It's a good ass story. Chapter 19. I spent the early morning daylight hiding behind a dumpster. The alley I sat in is only wide enough for my body to squeeze through. It stank of mold, damp, and wretched. The soggy slime slithered between my scandaled toes, clinging to my coat. But I dare not move. The countless shadows of passbyers walking to and fro along the sidewalk is far more terrifying than I remember it being. The idea that if I am spotted, as I am now, it would only end in panic, and human beings do unbelievable acts in the name of fear. So I lay against the cold brick alley, still and quiet, praying to a God I don't believe in to shadow my existence. I am scared. I should have tried to spend more time with my family. Should have made better friends. Why did things have to end this way for me, out of all people? Ridiculous, right? What else do you think we can do with this? My head shot up at the sound of that familiar voice. The first movement I made in hours cracked my neck. The stiffness in my muscles did not stop me from shifting closer to the mouth of the alleyway, ever careful of the abandoned broken cans and shattered glass around my feet. My friend. Gripping the brick exterior, I pulled myself slowly forward, just barely crossing from the alleyway's shadow to the street. The evening sky dwindles the bodies in the area, shrinking my chances of being spotted. I must have laid dazed for the whole day. My ex-classmates stood together next to a bus stop, entertaining themselves with an old torn book, the same book I remember them praising before inviting me out for the night. Why? Why did you do this to me? Are they not supposed to be prosecuted? I watched them talk giddily with one another, mocking my invisible form from across the road. Why? That's all I want to know. Can't you tell me that at least? Nothing. No answers to the voiceless plea. A Decker bus pulled into the stop, the three of them nodding to one another before vanishing through the doors of the vehicle. But I needed answers. And I will have my answers. I looked up and down the sidewalk before digging my talons into the building, puncturing the brick face deep enough to climb along the wall, all the way to the top. That's kind of scary. Just imagine to see a whole ass fluffball just climb up to the top. That's kind of scary, you know? I followed the bus around for the rest of the evening, keeping a hawk's eye on who exits the transport. The three of them got off in a residential area, entering a nice apartment building and vanishing behind the doors. The anxiety is eating away at my consciousness. Plenty of scenarios on how to confront them swimming in my mind. What would I do? What may I do? And if doing so, is it even worth the mental strain? I stood stuck on my options while looking over the ledge of the 2-story building across the street, swinging my large body around in frustration with myself. I have already come this far. Why back out now? Come on, YN. Time to grow a pair. I take a deep breath, steeling my nerves. Normally, I'm not the one to provoke conflict, but this is a little too serious for me to walk away. Once more, I looked down. My body ceased. How do I keep forgetting about my vertigo? So, if you guys forgot what vertigo is, basically is any fast movement, like for example, us rolling down a hill really fast and turning into a ball, causes us to like really have dizziness and problems whenever we just move too fast. We just get too dizzy and all that. I'll probably put the definition in the description so you guys can get a precise definition word for word on Google or in the comments. I'll try my best if I can remember it. If I don't put it there, remind me in the comments, please. Whew. Will forever remain a mystery. I closed my eyes a few times, squeezing them shut as I paced, trying to trick my brain into easing myself back onto the ground. Unfortunately, my feet did not get the memo, as I could not see where I had been stepping. My stride grew too wide, my talons met air, and my body fell forward. Excuse me. The whole world fogged over as I panicked, flailing around my round body and successfully landing in a decorated bush. I cannot say that this is the most stress-filled day of my life, or second life, whatever. Now, what rooms are those yankers in? My question is answered as one of said bastards opened the window to their apartment, not bothering to look at the view below, only to be distracted with the conversation going on. I tiptoed across the road, my intentions to be as silent as a mouse, but my sharp talons clattered like heels. I picked up my pace, flattening against the wall of the building, and stretched my body alongside the structure to reach the second story opening. I managed to grab a hold of the windowsill, hoisting myself up rather easily considering how much I should weigh. I am now able to see the disarray the inside had become. Clothing and porcelain shards cover the kitchen floor. The lights remained out, shrouding the black and red painted symbols along the walls. The place is a mess, and not a soul is in sight. I could just make out soft mumbling behind a closed door. I pulled the rest of my body, meeting yet another obstacle. My fluff could not fit through the glass frame. I sucked in my gut, holding my breath while bracing my arms along the interior wall. My back legs kicked out, struggling to push me forward. Sup? The abrupt, deep voice made me slip, smacking the front of my mask against the tap on the kitchen sink. My vision blurred for a moment before the outline of Jeff cleared up. He had the stupidest smirk on his lips. Oh wait, that's just his face. Thought I lost you, Birdie. Good to see you still have your hands. Slendy is not known to be delicate. He twirled the kitchen knife. Why do I keep saying chicken? Kitchen knife in his hand, flicking his tongue out down the blade. His smile widening. Sadly, I'm not here for you, though. You need to take care of those bitches who stole my spotlight on the news board. Been looking for them all night after Maskey said they broke up. Little shits. He turned his back on me, the sinister grin sending a shiver down my spine. I began to struggling more, knowing that if Jeff got to those guys first, I'll never get my chance for an answer. The ordeal started to make me sweat. I suppose that's all that is needed, as I fell over the sink and popped onto the kitchen floor with a pop, covering my hair with the debris. The smell of the interior is rotten, old, unkept. I can't believe those three live in such a disaster. The mumbling captured my attention. My entrance did not seem to disturb whatever it is they are doing. I stepped over the ground cover, avoiding making any more noise. Jeff stood against the door that blocked my path, a large eye carved into the wood in the center. Had I realized how mentally disturbed my ex-friends are, I would have ran for the hills. Too little too late, though. Jeff glanced over at me with his wide eyes. He flicked his unmarred hand at me, trying to shoo me away. His demeanor upset me, making me frown. I got as close to him as I could, snuggling against his side and compressing him against the door, with my fluff just to piss him off. He flailed, his yells muffled by my body. I stood like that as I listened to the room. The mumbles turned into his rhythmical chanting. Their foreign words and illegible. The voices went down when Jeff's knife collided against the door, cracking the frame and leaving a decent gash. What the fuck was that? Don't stop. Our chanting must be working. There is some shuffling inside the room before a single voice returned to speaking. Oh, great one, we hear your arrival. Please answer our prayers to your greatest being. Your followers have sinned in the minds of their own, prepared to hold us away from your great figure. We wish to serve by your side. Oh, great one, please answer your followers' selfish plea. The room stood silent. I fully expected something to happen with how emotionally confident that speech was. Yet alas, I am once again disappointed with these guys. Why is it not working? It worked before. Why all of a sudden? The fuck should I know? The great one is a fickle. Maybe he doesn't want us around. They seemed distraught and confused. I snickered at myself, dragging my claws down the cracked door to humor the ones inside. A little harmless prank. Something to ease the tension before I confront them. More for me than them, I suppose. Did you hear that? There were a few smack and back and forth whispers before footsteps approached the door. I patiently waited as a low click surrounded from the lock. The door slowly began to fall open. Jeff, however, was not going to wait. He shoved me off with all his might and kicked the door in, sending whoever it opened it to the ground. The floor of the room lay painted a red pentagram, the walls covered top to bottom with writing I cannot understand. The carcasses of small animals piled high in the corners, mice, birds, cats, and small dogs. What a disgusting mess. I'm sorry, y'all. I have to leave y'all on a cliffhanger. I'm so sorry, but damn, we got some really good details. So first things first, disgusting. We found out her ex-friends, the ones who are doing this currently that we just found out, is disgusting. Don't know how to take care of themselves and don't know how to take care of the shit that they have. And second of all, we're finding more and more out of what could have happened to YN that made her turn into the being she is now. Jeff the Killer, obviously nasty AF, you know. I'm just glad we're not a part of Slenderman's experiment, because gosh knows how terrible that would have been. I probably would have hightailed my ass out of there just like they did. Very amazing. I'm glad they did that. Anyways, sorry for leaving you on this cliffhanger, but let me know what you guys think is gonna happen next. What are some of the theories you guys have come up with this, if you have any? It's gonna get good. I promise y'all, it's getting good. It's just starting to rise up more and more. I really like it though. But question: why did they meet at a park? They could have met anywhere else. I mean, it's not random, but it's kind of a little random, you know, unless it was in an abandoned park. That's when I would understand, but I'm not sure if there is an actual abandoned park there. But who knows? We may find out, we may not. In the futuristic video. But I do hope you guys did enjoy this, though. Like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more and amazing videos, guys. And let me tell y'all now, if Jeff smells like what they're describing just as bad, ooh. If you could smell him from a fucking mile away, that boy is disgusting. Ugh. Just imagine poor Ben, bro. He probably has to wear a whole nose plug. He has to wear a whole nose plug and put near him because he's you know, no. I could never. If you stink, you stink. You know, don't be near me. Please. I will literally die. I will literally die. I do understand personal problems, but still, this is Jeff the Killer we're talking about. Specifically, if you're like him on purpose, please go take your ass in the shower. And make sure it's a full hour because that ass need to be cleaned. For real. But anyways, you girls gotta go. Bye and peace.